Today, every company is a software company. Whether you make digital tools yourself or just use them, your business needs effective software to grow. But developing software can be time-consuming and expensive. For starters, hiring developers in-house is difficult. Competition is steep, with industry giants ready to outbid for the best and brightest talent. What's more, most outsourcing just doesn't cut it. From poor product management to developer inexperience, not all dev firms are created equal, and some can even feel like a scam. Thankfully, there's VentureDevs. We're a venture development firm, a strategic product partner, and a completely customized technology solution. We've even been named a leading B2B software development company by Clutch. From product development to team augmentation, we can help. VentureDevs will assess your needs and execute on them with our customized discovery, design, and development playbook. If you're ready to partner with a company that's built thousands of products, helped businesses raise close to $1 billion, led to multiple exits, and reduced our clients' time to market by 83%, drop us a line today. We'd love to get started.
Hello, welcome to StartupStarter TV Founder Stories. My name is Jose Barrera, and I'm the CEO of StartupStarter. This evening, we have the pleasure of sitting down with VentureDevs CEO and co-founder, Joe Gardner. Joe is an avid entrepreneur who's founded 4 different companies, of which 2 have been acquired. He's also invested in 10 different companies, of which 2 have now become unicorns. Besides that, Joe is an active contributor writer to Forbes, Entrepreneur, and other magazines. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the stage, Joe Gardner.
Thanks, Jose. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure. How are you today, Joe?
Good, thanks. Good. It's looking a lot brighter on your side than mine. Apologies. It's getting dark over here, I guess.
Oh, good. Oh, good. We have the sun here in Sherman Oaks. Where are you located?
I'm here in LA, pretty much in West Hollywood. So it's still sunny out there. I guess you just can't tell that much here.
Yeah, gotcha. And are you guys, is VentureDevs in West Hollywood still? Or do you guys fully go remote?
VentureDevs, we're everywhere, but the US team, the bulk of us are definitely in the LA area. We have a couple of people on the East Coast, but the majority of our employees are actually over in Poland. So we have a pretty broad spectrum of locations.
Gotcha. And how's the team doing in Poland through this experience?
Yeah, you know what? Everybody's great. I think it's been interesting, obviously, seeing the way COVID has rolled around the world. I was over in Poland at one point when there was no rules or no anything, and LA was locked down. Now things are loosening up a little bit here, and I think it's a little bit tighter over there. So, we get to experience a lot, and of course, all of our clients are all over the world. So, hearing stories every day from different places, but can't complain.
Gotcha. Good. So yeah, same for us. We tried hopping around. I think we lived in Mexico for summer last year, just out of Tulum, trying to escape. And same concept. There was like rules. But it's just not a best place to work. Just great to live, but not really.
I'm surprised we didn't bump into each other there. I escaped there, but that was more vacation time, let's call it. So hard to be productive sometimes.
Yeah. Cool. Well, glad to have you here. Really happy to hear your story and to share it, with the world. So let's just get started on this. I really want to understand, just a bit more about Joe Gardner, how you got started, and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, well, appreciate the nice introduction, but obviously, as you can probably tell, have our hands full with a bunch of different startup related things. Certainly having VentureDevs puts us smack dab in the middle of the startup ecosystem. So, over the past decade or so, been building companies myself, have invested a bit, and then now with VentureDevs, we're over 100 people, essentially building software for companies of all shapes and sizes. And because of that, we really get to see a lot of interesting stuff. So it feels like something new every day coming our way, but it's always something exciting and a lot of different things for us to constantly evaluate.
Got it. And this is what, company number 4 or 5?
That's an interesting question. We actually have to figure out how we're going to quantify companies. There's definitely a few failed attempts in there.
Of course.
Thankfully for us, we kind of failed quickly, maybe even before they were actually companies. So somewhere in our DNA, that's always been part of something. We want to try to start things, but figure out if they're not gonna work out, to be able to fail quickly. So 4 sounds good, 5 maybe, somewhere in there. But yeah.
I mean, those failures is a good lesson. Same for us. It took a long time to get to StartupStarter is kind of like the tip of the iceberg, but kind of everything else that happened before the other companies is just the building blocks. How do you get started?
Yeah, so I tried to think about this. Obviously, being the founder stories a little bit. I figured that I should probably start this story back to when I was coming out of college, but even before that, for some reason, I just always knew I wanted to start a company, and I can't say when or where or how that started, but I'd probably have to attribute it to my parents both being entrepreneurial. They both have started companies at various points in their life, and my dad has had a company for over 30 years. So I guess always, being around that and having exposure to that probably, I guess, is where it came from. I can't really say, but I guess coming out of college, I thought I wanted to work in finance, like a lot of people coming out of college. And I guess for me, it was probably the only thing that I really knew about. Those were the only jobs people were talking about. So that's what I knew, and I wanted to work in finance. The problem I had was that I graduated in 2008 during the financial crisis. So it wasn't exactly the best time to be looking for a job in finance. So from that point, took a few twists and turns, but essentially found myself living in New York City, had run out of money, couldn't afford to pay rent, couldn't afford to live in New York anymore. So, thankfully my dad kind of helped me out with a couple extra months of rent. But that help sort of came with a deadline where he said, you need to get a job by this time. Otherwise you're coming back to Boston and working for my company, which sounds like a great offer. But his company is actually in office furniture distribution. So that wasn't exactly the sort of sexy Wall Street job that I had my heart set on. So I'm really trying to find a job. At the end of the day, I didn't wind up landing anything. So I went back to Boston, took an entry-level sales position at his company. I guess I wasn't super pumped about it at the time, but I quickly realized that I was sort of fortunate enough to have a job of any kind at that point in time. So I checked my ego at the door and got started. And I tell this story because the experience that I had, working for an office furniture company, selling office furniture, doesn't sound like the job that a ton of people are really looking for coming out of college. But for me, it was honestly the best experience that I could have had, and really set me up for my future entrepreneurial endeavors. And I think the sales process at that company, I guess I should explain, is they weren't really selling 1 to 2 chairs to somebody for their home office or whatever it might be. We were trying to sell offices worth of furniture or buildings worth of furniture. So the sales process was actually fairly complex. It might sound surprising, but in order to sell a company furniture, you needed to have various building codes be in compliance. You needed to have architects, designers, just to even be a part of the proposal and the presentation. So I guess being in the sales position there, I was always working with different departments and bringing different people together. So I guess in some ways it was kind of like running a little company within a company that I guess sort of gave me that confidence that at some point down the line I could eventually start something. And I guess from there was a few twists and turns. I guess one of the benefits of graduating during a financial crisis was that the stock market was basically at a bottom. So now for the first time I had my own income and fancied myself a finance guy still. So I was enjoying trading and happened to be making a decent amount of money on the side just because everything was going up. So
Sure.
So there I was kind of, having a little bit of savings, still wanting to start something, figure something out. Didn't really know what to do until one point in time, I had an idea for a company. And I guess like many people, I found myself staying up late at night, dreaming about this idea, figuring out how to put everything together. And so I said, okay, I'm going to pursue it. So I quit my job. My dad wasn't super pumped about it, but kind of understood and was supportive. But I started pursuing the idea and I guess fortunately, unfortunately for me, got a few months into it and realized that there was a real problem with the business model. There was kind of a legal situation that, would have prevented me from competing with some of the other companies. So I was like, okay, this isn't going to work. So now, no job, no idea, trying to figure out what I was going to do. But honestly, for me, that was one of the most exciting periods of time. I just reached out to a bunch of friends, picking their brains, asking for advice. And, I think the conversation when you start it there is, hey guys, I quit my company. I want to start a company. I've got a little bit of money to invest. Do you have any ideas? An amazing thing happens that people just really want to help you. So, they throw all the ideas at you, a bunch of introductions. And so, during that period of time, I just took all of those. And one notable one that I thought would be funny to mention is that I'm pretty sure a friend suggested that I speak with a company called Uber back in 2010 or 11. And for whatever reason, I didn't get too far. It didn't happen. Too bad, I guess, unfortunately. But I guess, fast forwarding a little bit, one of the opportunities that I pursued, a friend was trying to open a modeling agency and asked me for help with that. And I didn't know anything about modeling agencies. So I tried to learn and try to figure it out until at one point I actually agreed to move forward and do that. Although, again, quickly found out that there were some problems with that potential partner in that business. So I decided against doing that. However, I during that process and meeting a bunch of people in the industry, I met two guys who had started building a software product for the industry. And since I had some exposure to, I had some experience as to what was in the industry and what was going on. So I recognized that the platform had potential. They had a lot of connections, and they essentially needed a new partner to come in. They were looking for a little bit of investment, so wound up being a good fit. And ultimately, that was a company called Modasphere, which was my first official company. Let's say, as I said in the beginning, it can be a little difficult to say how many companies it was, but that was how I ultimately got started and started Modasphere. I guess a decade ago now.
Gotcha. And was that still in Boston, or were you at that point?
I was still in Boston, a little bit in New York, and then ultimately actually moved down to Miami to start building the company. One of the partners was living down there, and I was a hockey player my whole life and grew up in the Northeast, in Buffalo and Boston, and the idea of living in Miami in the warm weather was pretty appealing. So I went down to Miami to really start things off.
Gotcha. And what was the driver? So you mentioned you have your parents. It's kind of just always like, okay, I'm going to have a company. At this point, it's getting tough, right? There's different things you're trying out. One company seems to work. What was the thing keeping you up at night? Why do you stick with it? Is it like you found the passion, or you're like, hey, this is what I like doing? What kept you going?
Yeah, I mean, back then, I don't know that I can really pin it down, but, I think like anybody who's founded anything, I think you get that, excitement, right? So, you get excited, you start dreaming about what you're going to create, the team you're going to build, all the things. And, I know firsthand, I've experienced it. So many people who have started companies have experienced. So I think somewhere, of course, that's, kind of the inner excitement and burning flame there. Now that I've built a few companies and VentureDevs being, my largest company so far of over 100 people, I think, at some point it changes from having that inner burning desire and excitement to, I got to take care of my team and I got to do this for them. And I got to wake up and I got to make sure they have a company to work for and a job the next day, and they've got families and kids. And so, some transition period happens there, but, always finding something. And for me, finding something that is, I guess, not just about me always motivates me more if I'm doing it for somebody else.
Of course. Yeah. Similar to that. I think that's just a huge driver to just help you kind of get up at night. And if it's just for you and everything else is fine, it's sometimes hard to just kind of get up and do it. But if it's for someone else, you can't quit now.
Yeah, exactly. Got responsibilities.
Yeah. Okay. Then now let's get into, how did VentureDevs come around?
Yeah, so I guess to fast forward with Modasphere, built that up over a couple of years. We were sort of thankful to have a nice acquisition, and I guess the story was that after the acquisition, we just had a number of. I guess I should preface this. So my partner, one of my partners in Modasphere, is still my partner today, and his name is Wojtek. and he happens to be a technical genius. He loves it when I say this about him. And I am definitely the farthest thing from a technical anything, far from genius, of course. So, I think with our relationship developing with that kind of business and technical partnership was really great, over the years at Modasphere. And Wojtek has, especially interesting story in that his claim to fame is that he's Polish and he built the first and largest social network for Poland, kind of pre-Facebook days. So a lot of people in Poland, everybody knows the platform. He's got a lot of notoriety within the Polish, startup ecosystem. And I think that always allowed us to get great people who wanted to come work for us, or probably more specifically him. And so we sort of built Modasphere and a couple other things with this dual short model, with he being in Poland building the technical side of things, me being in the States building the business side of things. And so, I explain that because coming out of Modasphere, then after the acquisition, we just had a number of people sort of reach out asking for help with their various companies or their new startups, and said, hey, we know you sold your company. Can you help with our thing? So we said, sure. Hey, we'll take a look at what you're doing, see if we can help you out. And we started just helping some people out. And then more and more people started raising their hands and asking for help. And, I guess that was quite honestly the accidental start to VentureDevs. We didn't really mean to start it, but before we knew it, we had some people working for us. We had some clients, but we didn't have a name or a website or anything like that. So we said, hey, who are we kidding? We have a company here. We better come up with a name and put up a website. So that's how we got started in the early days.
Gotcha. When was this? Like what?
I believe this was probably 2016, because we're a little over 4 years old now. So at some point we were kind of unofficially doing it before we officially opened the company. So yeah, probably about 2016, I'd have to say.
Got it. Well, now to 100. That's quite impressive. Well done.
Well, we're working. So we're trying.
Congrats. Okay, before we get deep into VentureDevs, it's quite an interesting journey, ups and downs. Definitely coming into a crisis and then starting your career. What was the toughest part of your journey so far?
Yeah, the toughest part. I think the toughest recent part that I can talk about is having layoffs at our company. I think we had some things happening. At one point where we had some concerns about the financial future, and so we did some worst case planning. And the outcome of that was that we felt we needed to let some people go. And that any founder who's gone through that, and I know quite a lot that have had to do that, if not worse, through COVID. That's not fun for anybody. I think that excitement that we talked about, starting these things and then, having people that you're, feeling responsible for, it never feels good to have to let good people go and to downsize. You always want to be going the other direction. So that was definitely a struggle and probably the worst thing from a company building perspective, let's say. But, in the end, I guess fortunately it did wind up being a smart decision for us. As tough as it was, we had to stay financially sound, and so that's what we did, and we came out at the other end. But probably another thing that I'm always cautioning against, which is less about maybe having the company and something you should consider before starting a company, is that I've also had a bad founder relationship before, and that's definitely the worst. I think that going through that, as we spoke about, when you have your co-founders or your partners, whoever you're building the business with, those are sort of the people that are driving you forward all the time, and you kind of wake up wanting to do it for them. If you have a bad founder situation, that is really one of the worst, and you lose a lot of motivation and a lot of headache. And I've never been through a divorce before, but they say it's brutal, and they say that maybe a founder breakup can be even worse. So, I can't say specifically, but that was also an equally difficult thing to go through.
No, I can imagine. We've gone through the same, and I've gone through a case of a very brilliant co-founder that just wasn't coachable. It was a very tough combination to see someone that is super smart. Like, I know what you're talking about, but there's some things that you're definitely not seeing that we just can't correct. Cool. Okay. Now going back into VentureDev, so you've know the know-how. So you're building something because you understand the process. You have a genius co-founder that is building product, but you're entering a competitive market at a competitive time. How did you guys deal with that? Like, what was the differentiator between VentureDevs as a startup, as a company, now entering the market to say, hey, this is why we're better than you guys?
Yeah, I think for us it was, in all honesty, we almost didn't start the company. I think you heard the accidental origin story, but I think because of the fact that Wojtek and I had some success before, we sold Modasphere. We also had built another kind of product on the side that I can't remember exactly when it happened, but that we also sold the IP for that. So we're coming out of that, and we'd had some success, and I guess being on LinkedIn, the CEO of some software company for at that point at least 5 years, I was getting all the spam emails and hit up every day by some development agency trying to sell us engineers. And so I think we were very well aware of what the landscape looked like and what the dynamic was like. And I think that we were hesitant about doing it. I think what sort of changed the equation for us a little bit was probably some of those first friends that I mentioned that they were sort of asking for help. Is they were successful founders, they were cool companies, there were really exciting opportunities that we were working on. And so we said, hey, this is actually really exciting stuff and they need help and we're pretty capable of helping them. So, let's kind of do it and see what happens. And then, I think, as you alluded to, it's a super competitive market. There's a lot of people doing a lot of things there. And I think as anyone who's probably, explored using outsourced tech development or who's hired their own in-house teams, there's such a broad spectrum of capabilities. And, I think we knew that we were really good at what we do. I think the early growth of the business came out of our personal networks. So that sort of helped us. And then kind of growing from there, doing a good job with them, sort of allowed us to build a reputation for ourselves. And I think at the end of the day, this always sort of boils down to trust. I think, when you look back, I think over the last probably 5 or so years since we've been doing this, even the landscape has changed a little bit about how people are perceiving overseas, development. And, if not anything else, but COVID is sort of pushing that even further, which, thankfully for us. But, I think at the end of the day, it can be really hard to differentiate yourself in that market. But we have sort of had a decent track record. We had a decent network, and after you start taking care of people, the word spreads. And I think the single thing that set us apart was that ability to trust us. People knew me; they knew where to find me. They knew that we had done a good job for other people. And so I think that is, at least for us, what had and initially set us apart. And of course, that story continues to grow and hopefully having me be less of the focal point of the company. Now VentureDevs is off on its own and I can kind of hide in the background a bit. So
yeah, cool. Actually, side story, I knew VentureDevs since like 2017. I don't know how I came across it. I met Isabel briefly, and then when we launched StartupStarter, first company I thought about was you guys because we needed a partner, right? So good branding, good company. Good team, so definitely well done on that.
You can I can thank the team for that because definitely had more to do with them than me, so that's good.
Sure. Okay. And now companies at 100, when you guys hire someone, especially I think once that is past the 10 people point, that is no longer just a small family, what do you look for? How do you keep the team tight? How do you keep the culture? What are the key things you're looking to keep the company just right?
Well, even though we're fairly big, I think we still, keep it like a family for sure. I think, it's definitely different as you go through different phases, of course. And it was actually funny. I recall as we were growing really quickly, and I think we had reached the 60 or 70 mark, and that happened a couple of years ago. I was reading the book Principles by Ray Dalio.
Great book.
We're in there, I feel like the number was 66 or 67 or something like that. And I think we were like right at that number. But he was talking about how in Bridgewater's history, they had, he had given every person, a handwritten note or picked their Christmas gift or something like that. But once he got to that point, he realized that was just, not possible. And it was funny because, we sort of were going through that same transition of the small family, knowing everybody, knowing everything that's happening, to then now that just becoming not really a possibility. And so, I think for us, yeah, I mean, ultimately it always boils down to the team. So, it starts with, some 5-10 people who, are sharing a vision. They're sharing, I guess an expectation of the people that they want to work with, which is, super important to us. And then as you grow, you want to bring on more people that think that same way. So even if you're 50 or 100 or 1,000, you hopefully have those people who are holding the other people on the team accountable. And for us, at the end of the day, we always want to be thinking about bringing on amazing people to the team that can fill a gap, better than we can. So, I think from early startup mindset, there can be a tendency to be a little afraid about bringing people on or sharing information, or, especially from some founders who are, tend to be micromanagers or anything like that. I couldn't disagree with that more. I think that you always want to, look for areas and people that can come in and supplement things that you're not that good at. And if anything else, I'm quick to sort of recognize and point out my weaknesses. So maybe that's a benefit. So I'm always telling people I'm not very good at this, or I'm not very good at that. So we need to bring on somebody who's better at it than I am, or than we're currently able to do. So that's just generally our mindset, I guess.
No, that's key. And what makes a VentureDevs like team player like different? What are you guys? What's like when you picking someone that comes to work for you guys, when it sits down with you, what is it that you say, okay, you know what, this is the guy that is going to come to VentureDevs?
Yeah, I know we have a pretty thorough process that I haven't been involved with. Personally, I'm a pretty trusting guy, and I like to think, if I sit down and have an interview with somebody, I want to believe everything that they're saying, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be great. So, for various reasons, I intentionally am not involved in the hiring process. So I know that we have a specific hiring process to flush this out, but I think at the end of the day, it is a fairly thorough process. There's a phrase out there, says hire slowly, fire quickly. Never like the whole fire, portion of that. But I think if you really take your time and get to know somebody, you can sort of figure that out. And then I think from within the specific team and, what we're looking for, it's always people that contribute beyond just what is the job that we've hired them for, right? Do they want to be a part of our team? Do they want to be a part of our culture? And so, that's why our sort of three core, principles at the company are to have an entrepreneurial mindset or spirit, to be a great team player, and then to support your teammates beyond just sort of the work environment. And so the thing that I like, especially as we grow, even larger, is when I see things like people taking trips together, outside of the office, having nothing to do with the company. Nobody planned it except for them. They're wearing VentureDevs branded hats, or I have one woman on the team who's super into triathlons and things like that, and she has decided to put VentureDevs all over her gear, and so those types of things are super awesome. And then, even more as you grow, it's only been 5 years, but a lot can change in a person's life in 5 years. And so we have people who have gotten married, have kids, have dogs, so those types of things are really awesome to see, as we're sort of continuing to build and to grow.
Yeah, of course. Okay. And now you mentioned Ray Dalio, which is a book that I love to read as well. And a lot of the leadership that we've developed here comes from him and his writings. What is your leadership style? Like, what is it that, how you approach the company? You're more like hands off, you trust the teams, how do you talk to them every single day? What is it like working for Joe Gardner?
Well, you probably have to ask the team to get, an honest opinion of that. But yeah, I guess, as I said, just a second ago about, kind of recognizing my strengths and my weaknesses. I think, starting my first company, Modasphere, that I gave you the story there, I think I made every mistake that you can make, just like any first-time founder trying to figure it out. And I think one of the things I recognized that was a mistake was really trying to do too much.
Sure.
And trying to feel like, I had to be in control of so many different things. And, I think coming out of that, as I now believe that you really have to find people are better than you are at everything. And so, in my opinion, I'm trying to be the worst person at my company. I want to be the sort of least influential person. If I have people that are all better than I am at everything, well, then perfect. Then we have an amazing company. So, that's kind of my mindset. And when we grow, allowing people the autonomy to sort of do their thing. And, if you have that mindset of why you're hiring someone or why you're putting them in a role, then you want them to sort of flourish and grow their wings and fly. So yeah, I guess that's kind of how I'm always viewing things, and yeah, hopefully the team would agree with that. But yeah, I guess to paint the counter argument of that is I've been in some situations in which companies, they're really sort of oppressive, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And so I don't think anybody really likes that. So when you're kind of building a company, it's a collection of people that are all rowing in the same direction for hopefully believing in the same thing. So, if I don't think you can force anybody to do anything. And so if you think that you're going to hire people and force them to do a job, you're thinking about it the wrong way. If you get great people who are excited about what they're doing and you give them the autonomy and the freedom to do their thing, they're going to do it, and they're going to surprise you, and they're going to be passionate and motivated. And for us, hopefully they stay working with us for the next 30 years. So that's kind of my goal at the end of the day. So
definitely, lots of knowledge in that last minute that you spoke. Okay, so now let's go into the next 30 years. What's the future like for you guys? What's coming up next with VentureDevs?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Definitely 30 years. I don't know if I can answer that. Hopefully we have all of our team members still working with us.
A year at a time.
Yeah, that goes as a default, but we do have some exciting things coming up down the road. We recently announced that we're going to be launching our startup studio that we're calling VentureLabs. I think we're sort of in the process of figuring out exactly how we want to construct that and what's happening. Is everything all good here? I don't know if my screen is frozen.
Yeah,
you're with me there?
I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your screen froze. I was hoping mine didn't do the same, but I can still hear you. Yeah. So anyway, back to VentureLabs and the Venture Studio. It's I think that we've gotten to the point where VentureDevs is running pretty smoothly, and because of the position that we're in, we just see so many different companies. And I think the latest data is that we're seeing something like 60 different startups per quarter coming to us. And I guess a lot of those companies are coming to us even before they might go and potentially raise money. So they come to us saying, hey, hey, Joe, or hey, VentureDevs, I'm looking to start this company. How much is this going to cost me to build, and how long is it going to take me? I need to be able to put this on my deck to raise money. So, being in that sort of advantageous position, we realize that we have a lot of skills, and if we can focus on the validation component to these ideas or these startups, well, then we have all the rest of the tools that we feel that we can be able to create new companies and sort of let them graduate to college. So that's kind of part of our overarching business building strategy. We are trying to figure out exactly how that looks and how we put it all together. But we do feel that we have a lot of skills and a lot of experience, and we're already uniquely positioned, in the space. And I'm sure you're probably aware that this sort of venture studio, startup studio model is growing rather quickly. We think we've got a pretty big head start on quite a lot of other folks trying to do the same. So.
Got it. Well, I think my camera for somehow smack is out, but if you can still hear me, we can keep it going.
I can still hear you.
Cool. That works. No, definitely. I think the venture studio model is definitely the future. I would love to hear more of your thoughts on kind of the reason going into this. I've seen a lot in the startup ecosystem, just kind of going more and more into venture studios, just because it's more of a proven model than even accelerators. Anything you want to drop in regards to any ideas you guys are considering, or as to why Venture Studio now, and any concepts that you want to give us?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess from the sort of origination of where we wanted to start this was actually probably about 7 or 8 years ago. We had an idea for a company that we were calling Incu Partners. And the idea there, as it might imply, is that we wanted to be sort of an incubating partner for various companies. And we thought that we had some skills and abilities to do that back then. And, as I already have sort of told you the VentureDevs story and how we got started, I think one of the driving forces behind VentureDevs has always been that ability to build a great team and to be able to create new companies sort of at will. We're just sort of taking one of the biggest components of creating a company, and the way that I like to tell the story is about if you view building a company like a wheel, and I actually have this wheel in the back of my head somewhere here. But if you view building a company similar to building a wheel, and all the spokes on the wheels are various components of the company, like sales and marketing and tech, just so happened that VentureDevs winds up being a pretty important spoke on that wheel with the technical side of things. And so, while we've been able to build VentureDevs and build a great company and have great clients, underlying that has really been, kind of the education and building the team that we can therefore build any technical product with in the future. And I think, the future, for us looks like something rounding out a few more of those spokes to be able to launch companies a little bit more quickly. So that's really where the idea started. I guess it would have been a startup studio or a venture studio back then, although we didn't know that, we weren't using that moniker, I guess, at the time. But that's really been a sort of driving passion for us, is how can we create some form of company creation machine. And then, again, with VentureDevs, it was just such a benefit to be able to create that. We're also creating a nice cash flow business, getting a lot of experiences, building an amazing team, so that then we can do that ourselves in the future if we want to. So that's really how it all got started. And then, without getting too much into other concepts or ideas that we're working on, because we haven't officially gone out for fundraising or anything like that. But I think, given the fact that we have over 100 employees and we're building tech for so many different companies and so many different types of companies, I think that there are some things that we've identified that can really help VentureDevs itself, build products better, faster, create a more, a better experience for our clients. And so it's always nice when you can build something that can help your current company, VentureDevs, but we also feel that these are great options for companies that we can spin off and to be their own entities at some point. And so, we are in the early stages on a few of those things, but we're sort of fortunate to have an R&D team now trying to work on, even more of an innovation team, hopefully sooner rather than later. But the ability to sort of test things out on ourselves, work on things with our clients and be able to sort of validate firsthand to see what's working, what's not working, and just getting so many reps or at bats that you just get to try so many different things. So those are the sort of top priority items. We're sort of obsessed with validation. So if we can validate on ourselves first, what better way to do that, to be able to have conviction that we are doing something that should be done.
Sure. I got two more questions. One, I just haven't asked it just yet. Who is this for? Like, who do you guys work with at VentureDevs, and who would you be working with for VentureLabs?
Yeah, so VentureDevs, we have clients of all shapes, from early idea stage startups, where we sort of help companies create what is their vision, what's the idea, and build it. And sometimes we're their entire technical team and help them, from day one. We have growth stage startups, if you want to call them startups, where some of them have raised a few $100 million. They're worth a few $1 billion. I guess they're still startups, but so we have a few clients like that, and we have bigger, more corporate clients, and even a few things going on with the U.S. government. So as far as the VentureDev size is concerned, we can work with anyone and everyone, and we're growing pretty quickly. So that seems to be growing more and more each day. The VentureLabs side of things is definitely focused more on the earlier component, on that sort of idea stage startup, or maybe it's a little bit further, where we can help them not only with tech development, but we're actually pretty convinced that most of these companies or startups should actually be focused more on the validation side before they even start building something. And so that's one of the biggest things that we've seen, in strong feelings that we have, where startups are kind of not doing themselves any favors. And we know the statistics on why so many different startups fail, right? And it's always boils down to lack of product market fit. So when we start talking to companies that are trying to rush and build their products, because if you build it, they will come, with that type of mindset, again, going back to the excitement of being a founder, I get it. But, it's a lot more painful if you kind of don't do the validation properly, raise some money from your friends and family, or, build a team and bring people on and spend a year or two to then go try to sell your product and find out nobody wants it. I can promise you that that's a much worse situation than spending the proper time to validate the concept in the beginning, before building something. And so that's really what VentureLabs is all about. And we'll try to work with. We have our own ideas, as I mentioned, so we'll be kind of founders and building that ourselves. And then on the other hand, because of our positioning, because of the network that we have, we see so many different things. So we want to be able to come in as a minority partner, but really be treated like a co-founder and be able to help with much more than the technical side of things.
It's amazing. Good. Okay, now do you have a wealth amount of knowledge? One parting question
about that.
Well, it definitely seems like it's a lot. If anyone's taking notes, there's a lot here that was spoken that's really key for an entrepreneur. So with that in mind, what advice would you give to an entrepreneurs coming to the game or just kind of maturing in their story?
Yeah, I mean, the validation thing is something I'm always hammering on. I feel like a broken record most of the time, but it really is one of those things that most of the decks you wind up seeing, or even companies that are getting off the ground, they really haven't done a proper validation. And what I mean by that, to go sort of a layer deeper, is it's not enough to just speak to a couple friends that you have. I know the story, I've done it myself, I've made the mistakes where you get excited about something, you say, hey, everyone's going to love this because I had the idea and nobody's thought of it, or whatever it might be. And it's the typical process is that you speak to some friends and they tell you your idea is great because, well, hopefully you have nice friends and they don't want to break your heart. So I never think that that's really the best place to stop your research. Is I spoke to a couple of friends and they think it's cool. Maybe the second you turn your back, they're actually like, I would never use that thing. You don't know. So I think a lot of the things that you wind up seeing are just really haven't gone through a proper validation process. And that's just one minor example. But really spending the time and getting data. And I think the core really of validation is to actually have data or have proof that shows you that it's validated. And so I guess having a software development company, right? We don't. I guess I'm in a sort of advantageous position where I don't tend to really care all that much about the product, because I know that we can build an amazing product anytime, anywhere, any place. And if it was just as easy as building a great product, well, I would have $20 billion companies by now. But I think it's a little more complicated than that. And so you need to have some special sauce or some way to sell and market your product. And so when it comes to the validation component, I think a lot of people just default to, well, how am I going to be able to validate my product if I don't have the product yet? And there's just so many tricks and things that you can do that you don't actually need the product. And I focus on this a lot, and we probably have to have another call to go over this specifically. But this is really what VentureLabs is meant to be all about. So again, I guess to answer your question more specifically is, if you're an early stage founder, put in the work, roll up your sleeves. If you have an idea, go out into the world and, figure out if people are actually interested in your product, and you can do it without having built the product and, spent $50,000 or $500,000 on a product to then try to sell it. Because guess what? At the end of the day, you're going to have to sell it. You're going to have to get users. You're going to have to get people using your thing. And so if you try to do that before you actually spend all that time and money and effort and find out nobody wants it, well, that's a much better position. And then the benefit even more is if it does work out well, now hopefully you have email lists and you have potential target clients lined up, and you have all these things that you're going to have to do at some point. And so I think overlooking that part of the process, letting the excitement get to you and running forward, this is why we have so many startups failing. In my mind, I'm convinced of this because a lot of the companies just shouldn't have been built in the first place. And it, sucks to do that. I have done it. The company I quit my first job, real job, to pursue. I found out that there was a problem with it, but it sucked to figure that out. But at the end of the day, I was a lot happier that I found out, in a couple of months, rather than having raised money from friends and family or whomever and spent a long period of time of my life to then figure out that there was a problem. So yeah, I don't know, that's the thing that I'm always hammering on. And then, make sure that you don't have a crappy co-founder. I'm thankful to have been partners with Wojtek for 10 years. We had a troublesome partner at one point. So as much as I said everything about the validation and things like that, even if you do everything right and you have a great concept and is validated, if you've got a bad partnership, that can also kill your company. So I think I wrote an article somewhere on that, but that is definitely something to make sure you solve before you get too far down the path. I think you might be muted.
Not anymore. Cool. Thank you so much, man. Joe, that's been amazing. Just a ton of advice, ton of knowledge. Great story. And so good to hear that, right? I think a lot of people miss that point of just kind of the validation, right? Or you perhaps have a good idea and it's a good timing to raise and you get money. You think you've been validated because you found money, but nobody was paying you for it, right? It's another big problem.
Yeah. Well, too many people, I think, are using the VC or the fact that they've been able to raise money as their validation. And I'm sure any VC listening to this, they're putting money into these things, but they've seen firsthand that these companies find out they are not validated. So everybody's taking a risk, but the more you can take the risk off and have the data behind that, the better. So that's truthfully what we want to focus on at VentureLabs. So
cool. Okay, and then last thing, how do we contact you? How do people get in touch with VentureDevs and VentureLabs?
Great question. I think they were pretty easy to find. So we have some emails and stuff out there. I know we're on all the social media stuff. Even though we have a tech development company, I guess it's embarrassing to say I'm not very technical myself. So thankfully I have an amazing team that helps with all this stuff. But you can reach out one way or another. I guess as a plug for VentureLabs and anybody who's listening to this, if they were interested what I had to say on the validation side, we're definitely going to be hiring, and I think the process is already happening. I know we have a number of roles that are already listed. Trying to get to whatever kind of badasses we can who are listening to this that are interested. I know that we're going to be looking for growth hackers and researchers and product owners on that side. But between VentureLabs and VentureDevs, I don't know how many roles we're currently hiring for, but it's a lot. We've got a lot to do, and at the end of the day, we're always looking for great people, and I think that goes beyond just hiring and joining the company officially. We love to have great partners like you guys. Developing any relationships like that. We're all sort of in and around the same space, and so we try to be helpful to our friends, and thankfully we have friends who are helpful to us. So reach out for anything, honestly. If you're interested in more that we might have from a job perspective, or I know I've had some articles and things, but I love talking about this stuff. I talk about it all the time. I feel like a broken record sometimes, so I'm happy to continue the conversation. And I know the team, like I said, we're actively looking for badasses to join the venture family. So,
cool. Well, cool. With that, I think we're coming to our time. Thank you so much for joining us, Joe. And we'll see you around.
Yeah, Jose, thanks for having me. Awesome. Well, we can do it again sometime.
Of course we will. Bye.
All right, thanks.